As the green vortex began to revolve in reverse, its bright green coloration abruptly turned into a shade of dark green, and the suction force surging out of the vortex also transformed into a burst of powerful repulsion force that enveloped the black stone ball at the center of the vortex. A layer of bright green light instantly appeared over the surface of the stone ball, only to vanish an instant later. Immediately thereafter, a burst of blurry green light flew out of the gourd before striking the mountain face. The entire mountain face shuddered violently along with the ground beneath it, as if an earthquake were unfolding. But the tremors instantly subsided, and Han Li cast his gaze forward to discover that a millstone-sized hole had appeared on the mountain face. The edge of the hole was extraordinarily smooth, and it was so deep that there was no end in sight. He injected his spiritual sense into the hole, and a stunned look appeared on his face. As it turned out, the hole extended several hundred kilometers. Han Li looked down at the green gourd in his hand with an ecstatic look on his face. The repulsion force released by the gourd had imparted incredible destructive power upon that ordinary stone ball. If he had shot a spirit treasure, or even an immortal treasure out of the gourd as opposed to an ordinary stone ball, how powerful would that blow have been? A hint of excitement welled up in Han Li's heart at the thought. And after taking some time to recover through the use of pills and immortal origin stones, he injected his spiritual sense into the green gourd once again. Just now, it had blasted out his spiritual sense along with that stone ball. Inside the green space, the green vortex had already reverted back to its former state, and it was slowly revolving in its original direction. Han Li's azure bamboo cloud swarm swords and that miniature pavilion were still hovering at the center of the vortex. At Han Li's behest, most of the flying swords and the miniature pavilion flew away to HD's side, leaving only a single azure bamboo cloud swarm sword at the center of the vortex. After that, the vortex began revolving in reverse again, while also turning a darker shade of green, and the same burst of repulsion force re-emerged, this time acting upon the azure bamboo cloud swarm sword. The sword was instantly enveloped in a ball of piercing green light, and it was trembling violently, on the verge of being blasted out of the gourd. But instead of allowing the burst of repulsion force to be released, Han Li was suppressing it with all his might. As time passed, his complexion began to pale, and his body also began to tremble, clearly indicating that he was nearing his limits. All the while, the repulsion force in the gourd was continuing to build, and bursts of dull rumbling were ringing out within the gourd, as if it were a volcano on the brink of eruption. By suppressing the release of the repulsion force, the vortex would continue to revolve faster and faster. But at a certain point, Han Li wouldn't be able to suppress it any longer. Instead of persevering beyond this point, Han Li released the repulsion force, and the green gourd shuddered slightly, as did the space in front of it. Han Li activated his bright sight spirit eyes to their full capacity, and only then was he just barely able to catch a glimpse of a green shadow. The green shadow was only visible for an instant before it pierced into the rock face up ahead and vanished. Almost at the exact same moment, the same green shadow flew out of the earth several thousand kilometers away. Even after piercing through the earth for thousands of kilometers, the sword was still as fast as lightning, and it rose straight up into the sky, vanishing out of sight in a flash. An extremely thin spatial rift was left in its wake, while Han Li looked on in astonishment from the bottom of the ravine. Only after a long while did he gently exhale, and even though he had turned as pale as a sheet, there was an ecstatic look in his eyes. The azure bamboo cloud swarm sword, blasted forth by the gourd, had been so powerful that it had been able to instantly pierce through thousands of kilometers of earth, while also slicing through the very space itself. Some of his most powerful attacks were able to shake the space around him, but never had been able to tear through the space outright, so this was truly an extraordinary sight. On top of that, the attack was far faster than any of Han Li's other attacks, and he was confident that even a high zenith cultivator wouldn't be able to evade it from close range. With that in mind, Han Li summoned an immortal origin stone to aid in his own recovery, then swept his other hand through the air to release an incantation seal. Shortly thereafter, the azure bamboo cloud swarm swords flew down from above before landing in his grasp. Only after conducting a careful examination to ensure that the sword hadn't been harmed, Hanli returned it to the gourd. Around half a month passed by in the blink of an eye. On this day, a ball of golden light shot forth from afar, then appeared near the ravine in the blink of an eye. The golden light faded to reveal none other than the gold-devouring Immortal, and a tremendous aura erupted out of its body, causing all of the demon beasts within a radius of thousands of kilometers to flee in a panic. The high zenith stage tree demon was also awakened, and it looked up at the gold-devouring Immortal with an apprehensive expression. "Piss off if you don't want to die," the gold-devouring Immortal warned, then turned its gaze to the ravine. A furious look flashed through the tree demon's eyes, but it didn't retaliate. Instead, it lifted up all of its enormous roots out of the soil before also fleeing the scene. The gold-devouring Immortal paid no heed to it as it continued to scrutinize the ravine intently. The baleful chi inside the ravine was so immense that it was left feeling a little apprehensive. Furthermore, it wasn't able to release its spiritual sense very far into the ravine at all, due to the obstructive baleful chi, so it couldn't detect what was inside the ravine. After a brief moment of contemplation, it flew down into the ravine as a ball of golden light, but as soon as it did so, a burst of thunderous rumbling abruptly rang out near the ravine, and thick pillars of black light emerged before erupting into the heavens. This was none other than the Dawnfall Heavenly Array, and it was giving off tremendous spiritual power fluctuations. The pillars of black light resonated with one another to release countless black runes, which abruptly exploded to form balls of black light that collected the pillars of black light together, forming a vast sea of black light that encompassed the entire ravine and the gold-devouring Immortal. At the same time, Taoist Shay appeared near the sea of black light, then began to chant an incantation while making a string of hand seals. The sea of black light instantly began to churn, and countless bands of black light that resembled giant tentacles emerged within it before sweeping toward the gold-devouring Immortal. All of the bands of black light were flashing with black runes that were giving off immense restrictive force, but the gold-devouring Immortal merely harumphed in disdain as it swept its two front limbs through the air. Streaks of peerlessly sharp green light were instantly sent flying in all directions, severing the bands of black light that were attempting to ensnare it. Immediately thereafter, it lashed out with its front limbs once again, sending two giant blades of golden light slicing into the surrounding sea of black light. A string of cracks and pops instantly rang out from within the sea of black light, and it began to churn violently while rapidly dimming as if it were about to collapse. Right at this moment, a sharp screeching sound rang out from deep within the sea of black light, followed by two thunderous, dull thumps, and two explosions of golden light took place before quickly fading away. The gold-devouring Immortal's expression changed slightly upon seeing this. It seemed that the attacks it had just unleashed had been withstood by something. The churning sea of black light was stabilized again, and it was rapidly becoming brighter. At the same time, around a dozen giant black pythons suddenly shot out of the sea of black light, each of which was several thousand feet in length, and they pounced at the gold-devouring Immortal in unison. A cold look appeared in the gold-devouring Immortal's eyes as it lashed out with one of its front limbs, and countless streaks of golden light instantly erupted out of its body, forming thousands of golden beetle projections that launched themselves at the oncoming black pythons. A string of resounding booms rang out as the dozen or so black pythons were wiped out in an instant, disintegrating into countless specks of black light. With yet another sweep of its front limb, all of the golden beetle projections converged to form an enormous golden sword projection, which swept through the surrounding sea of black light with tremendous power. However, right at this moment, countless black runes surged out of the sea of black light, giving off bursts of formidable law power fluctuations, and the remnants of the black pythons converged to form a series of giant black rings, which instantly appeared around the golden sword projection. stopping it cold in its tracks. The gold-devouring Immortal let loose a furious roar upon seeing this, and it raised its two front limbs up high as bright golden light erupted out of its body. There were layers of golden runes interspersed throughout the golden light, and they revolved momentarily in midair before forming a ball of golden light that was several thousand feet in size. Blinding golden radiance erupted out of the ball of golden light, and it resembled a golden sun that forced back the sea of black light to create an open area, following which the ball of golden light shot forth at the gold-devouring Immortal's behest to strike the sea of black light with devastating power. The ball of golden light instantly exploded with an earth-shattering boom, and ferocious gusts of golden wind swept forth in all directions, completely eradicating the surrounding sea of black light, which disintegrated into countless specks of black light. As the sea of black light vanished, the gold-devouring Immortal found itself back at the entrance of the ravine. At the same time, Taoist Xie stumbled back in retreat, as if it had been dealt a heavy blow. Its complexion was quite pale, its robes were in tatters, and two large gashes had appeared on its chest and lower abdomen, clearly indicating that it had been severely wounded. After flying back for over 10,000 feet, Taoist Xie fled the scene as a streak of golden light, making no attempt to engage the gold-devouring Immortal in battle.